Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm Bobby Howard. With me, as always, is Jameson Maxwell and Ty Lee. And guys, the good times are back. The Oklahoma Sooners get off of their losing streak, get with a massive, massive win over a respectable West Virginia team, 59-20 in absolute blowout fashion. Look, a lot to talk about with this one. A lot of good stuff happening, not just in this game, but around the Big 12, and we'll talk about all of that. But let's just get right into it. Jameson, what was the biggest difference maker for OU in this game on Saturday?
Being at home. And I'm going to make that a huge point. I think the way this offense and this team is set up, obviously we're going to do better at home. But whenever you have the hurry up on offense, it is deadly. But whenever you also have a home crowd behind you and you don't have Andrew Rame having to worry about the snap count whenever there's Oklahoma State fans yelling in the crowd and everything's working, snowball effect, you score 59 points.
Bobby, you're on mute.
I'm aware of that. I was sharing everything. I was off the screen, off the ball a little bit.
Nothing, Bobby. Just continue on.
Brutal. Anyways, I think being back at the friendly confines of Owen Field definitely helped. Having OU back there, the offense is something that you kind of have to have a pristine situation to really click. And as we've noticed, this team's just not quite the same on the road. Even going back to Cincinnati, just not quite there. But Ty, your thoughts on the game? Go ahead, Jameson.
Yeah, it just makes you think, do we want to continue with this hurry up? It's like just a home thing. And then on the road, do we just kind of scrap it? Is that even a conversation to be had? Because I know it's an identity kind of thing. It works really well at home, but I just don't really think it makes too much sense whenever you're worried about, there's multiple times in these past couple games where I see the wide receivers don't know the play. They have no idea. They don't know the play. And then they don't run a good route. And guess what? That leaves you with one route to throw the ball to. And most of the time that doesn't work. So, it just makes me think just a little bit. And the success of it at home versus on the road really just kind of just turns this knife inside of me.
I see a couple factors, right? We touched on the home piece, which I think is huge, but you have to remember that their cracks were very much showing at home against Central Florida. So, playing in Norman is not necessarily 100% of the thing. I think you have returning, Danny Stutzman, as we'll get into, but obviously he didn't go out there and score 59 points. Jameson, I think you brought up an interesting point on the receivers. I think West Virginia is a very solid team, but West Virginia does have some stuff to contribute because pretty much everything we threw at them offensively worked. So it was very hard almost to find something that wasn't working for OU. But if I had to point to one thing, and it was a massive, massive feature yesterday in this game, and it's something that we had spoke about in the pregame podcast of where is this? This was working so well. Where did it go? And that's Dillon Gabriel designed run attacks, or just giving him that freedom to run the ball. He was doing it all night. Honestly, for my comfort, we were running him pretty aggressively pretty late in the game when I thought we didn't need to, when we were up 20, 30 points and we were in the fourth quarter and Dillon Gabriel was out there trying to run over a linebacker. That was making me a little uncomfortable. Although, he's a competitor, he can handle it this year. But I think the Dillon Gabriel run attack coming back to the offense in conjunction with a bunch of other stuff that we're about to get into offensively, I think if I had to point to a key to the game outside of the home environment, obviously the biggest one, that's what I would point to.
Yeah, 100% they use Gabriel a lot better. In fact, this is probably has to be one of his best games ever. Obviously, Texas was a bigger moment, but it's hard to argue with 8 total touchdowns, 5 through the air, three through the ground, in a school record for touchdowns accounted for. It was an absolute just incredible performance on Gabriel's end. And you could tell that one, he had a bit more confidence than he usually has. And 2, Levy was, like you said, Ty, was actually running him again. And I think it's clear that that's going to be and has to be a very significant aspect of this offense going forward, especially as we move into Jackson Arnold in 2024.
Yeah, we play to our strengths. And if we weren't experimenting, because I feel like we were experimenting a lot in these past couple games with the running backs. Even whenever we saw some positive things from the running back room, we got some hope from Gavin Sawchuk. There were still some moments where it's like, this is a pretty big moment in this game, and the running backs really haven't shown to be that one to go out and make the big plays. Why don't we put the ball in our best players' hands? And this game, we did just that, and we succeeded, and we succeeded over and over and over. It made sense, and we did the right thing, and I was really, really happy with this offense.
Yeah, just from what I've seen, because I was at a wedding, so I didn't get to see the game live. I've had to kind of recap everything, play catch up a bit. But it seems like everything, like the offense was less cute, more straightforward, more effective, more, up and down the field, like what we've been clamoring for the entire season.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Bobby. That was my next talking point to mention on the offense is we almost entirely got rid of the cute stuff and we just executed, well thought out plays. Obviously, there's some cracks in there as well as I don't know how deep we're going to get into the receivers and such, but there's still a lot of learning to do. But again, employing the assets that we have within their strengths and then, allowing them to support each other. We had a run attack that was there, that was a real threat that West Virginia had to act to mitigate. And once we opened that up, then we didn't have to rely on, Drake Stoops, who had an awesome game, or Nick Anderson, or, Austin Stogner, or anyone else there to sort of make these clutch plays. Hey, he had a game.
7 minutes into the pod. I thought it was going to come sooner.
His best game in an OU uniform, I think, maybe. But yeah, once we had an offense that really didn't have to rely on just a single point of failure, even though it wasn't cute, even though it wasn't super fancy. And again, West Virginia had a lot to do with it because everything we threw at them stuck. But it was just really, really, it was beautiful to watch, even as just a fan of football, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not a West Virginia fan.
And the thing is, like, it really does come down to, like I said, being at home, and also we're becoming a little bit more well-rounded because Gavin Sawchuk is unlocking a part of this offense to make it less one-dimensional. Like you said, Ty, there's a lot of things that this offense is, and we talk about Jeff Lebby's scheme, but it really needs to make sure that you are not predictable. If you are predictable in Jeff Lebby's scheme and you get your first option taken away in the passing game, things are not good. We saw it all through last season and this season, that whenever we're behind the 8 ball and the teams can kind of predict, they know what's coming, we struggle. Now that our run offense is starting to pick up, Gavin Sawchuk averaging over 6 yards a carry, we can actually add some, questions in the defense's minds where they don't know what's going to come next. And also with the quarterback run game, it should line up to have a good offense for the rest of the season if the running backs can continue to play like the way that they were playing on Saturday.
Yeah, Gavin Sawchuk, like the past 2 weeks, has been a complete revelation. He changes the makeup of this team entirely offensively. If you can actually run the football effectively, and in a way, like, I love Tawi Walker, but I feel like Gavin Sawchuk is just a little bit more dynamic with what he brings to the running back room, to that role. I think once Walker gets a little bit healthier, he only had like 1 carry for -2 yards, didn't really do much. But I think using those two in tandem would be very successful. And it seems like, to me, Gavin Sawchuk, that is exactly what we've been needing. 22 carries, 135 yards. Dude's electric.
Can we talk about a negative that I might be attacked for, right? But
no, let's hear it.
Quick sidebar. When are we gonna realize that Gavin Freeman maybe isn't? He might be coasting on that one first play ever he had, because it sure seems like we're giving this man 13,000 opportunities per game, and we're just getting the most, like, all right, well, we'll give him another opportunity.
Yeah. So in the punt game, obviously the first muff was not his fault. That's just people needing to get out of the way in terms of blocking. But yes, it seems like he's not been that type of guy that we are really excited for him to be. But here's the thing, this was a guy that was not offered a true scholarship out of high school, who got in big minutes his freshman year and made contributions. And he's playing behind one of the best players on the field right now in Drake Stoops. So he's a true sophomore, and we had all these expectations. I agree, Ty. We should kind of dampen down those expectations. But I feel I hate to look into the future, but next year, whenever you don't have Drake Stoops, that slot position is going to be such an important part of this offense. And missing Drake Stoops, obviously, in what he showed in this game, it's going to hurt us because Jaquace Pettaway and Gavin Freeman got to step up and fill that role. It's going to be a huge role.
Freeman, to me, he is in good position to make plays, but I feel like he struggles with drops. And that's something that's nervy. That's something you worry is kind of in your head sort of thing. Because you have to, if you're a receiver, if you're a skill position player in general, if the ball hits your hands, you got to catch it. That is 100% into story.
You can't get over it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a hard thing to get over if that is truly the case. If it's kind of a mental block, a yips situation. But I will say for now, Drake Stoops. Last week, I think we mentioned that he had his best game probably as a Sooner, and how much of a shame it was that it happened in a Bedlam loss. Well, he just went and trumped it with an incredible performance with the 10 receptions, 164 yards, and 3 tutties. Dude is just genuinely. I feel like we've always said he's that guy who he's a safety blanket. He's really good when you need him, but with the volume that we've been giving him, he's just straight up a star right now. Dude's been unreal.
Yeah, Drake Stoops, I think one of the big things that he got in this game that he just hasn't, had the opportunity for in a lot of previous games is yards after catch. He's always been a really, really good catches in traffic guy. Obviously, this year he's had some drops here and there, but he's had some not so great throws here and there as well that he's had to work with sometimes. But he's always been a catch and traffic guy. He's always been someone who, I feel like 99%, obviously not 99. A lot of the times when you see a Drake Stoops catch, he's immediately smoked by 3 people because he's always in traffic. He never even gets a chance to turn around. He's always taking massive hits to the back of his shoulder pads. And he finally got some plays, finally got some looks in this game. Obviously, again, West Virginia had a piece to play in this where he had the opportunity to get turned around and to create some yards after catch. And, that long touchdown he had was
unreal,
absolutely monstrous. That was an adult touchdown. That was a, NFL scouts start to pay attention type of touchdown there with just not giving up, running over someone, getting open, making good moves in the open field, and then running through people when it counts. I mean, that was very, very impressive. Easily a career highlight reel play that we got to see in real time. Well, Bobby didn't get to see. He was at a wedding.
Well, great blocking downfield, too. That was an all-around good play by our wide receiving crew. I think
he earned that spike. He earned that spike, man.
Oh, yeah. The way that this wide receiver room is set up right now in terms of our offense, we need games like this from Drake Stoops. I think we can move on from hoping Jalil Farouk is just going to be this wide receiver 1 outside guy. He doesn't have that. I need Drake Stoops to get 8 catches a game in terms of success in this offense, because the way it's set up is you need guys who get off the line of scrimmage quick and get open quick. We don't throw the ball. We get the ball out of Dillon Gabriel's hands pretty quickly. And Drake Stoops is that guy in our offense. So if we want to succeed on the offensive side for the rest of the year, I can't have Drake Stoops 4 catch games, 5 catch games, 30-yard games. I need to see 8 catches, 70-plus yards at least, every single game.
Right. He's absolutely a volume guy at this point, without a doubt. No longer a safety blanket. You got to keep getting this guy the football because he's electric. And it's exactly what you need when you're going tempo, when you're going speed, just cutting fast moves right down the middle. I love it. And I got to say, we got to give a shout out to Nick Anderson as well, who, hasn't exactly, he's had an off couple of weeks, but he showed out in a big way in this game. Just racked up a ton of yards on only 4 receptions, 119, I believe. Getting him involved in the offense in a way where he's not just like a touchdown maker, that's crucial as well.
Yeah, that was kind of my
Yeah.
next point is Nick Anderson obviously has had some teething issues in the past couple of weeks. I'd like to say he obviously started out super, super hot, but I think at this point he's sort of built up enough tape that people are really having to be aware of him. And I think especially in this game, as we continue to dive into the receivers, with Stoops having a tremendous game, which is sort of what's expected at this point, but with Nick Anderson having enough tape that West Virginia really had to pay attention to him every time he was out there on the field, I think lifting some of that pressure from Farouk's shoulders, I think was really, really big because he only had 2 receptions, another 2 carries. I think he was right at like 80 all-purpose yards. But his 2 receptions, I thought, were very, very good. They were, I think, high-pressure catches, and he seemed like he performed a lot better than he has in the past, even with just 2 receptions. I know that's a small sample size, but the entire wide receiver room really seemed like it had started to mesh a little bit, and we've started to figure out how these guys can complement each other and sort of open up stuff, with the defense. If the defense counters one, they're going to leave something else open, especially with the addition of Stogner becoming sort of a receiving target in this game that was pretty major. And this is not a bit, right? Like that was that was a factor.
Okay, I'm glad that you said
was,
in
no,
this
he-
game
he
at
was-
the end of this.
No, he was
Yeah, in
really
this
big in this game, and if he keeps
He
playing
was.
like this, then I mean, it would be great. This is the Stogner I think we kind of thought we were going to get when he was coming back from South Carolina, and this is kind of best case scenario Stog, and I hope we keep seeing it out of him, and hopefully he's figured it out. I know we didn't have Blake Smith this game, so that gave him a lot more snaps, but as Jameson knows all too well, he already gets a bunch of snaps. So I don't know. It just seems like they kept putting him in position to succeed a little bit more than they had in the past. He's just, let's be honest, horrible blocker. So having him in better scenarios there, I think has been good for him.
Yeah, looking at this wide receiver room, and this kind of goes back to my point earlier of Drake Stoops. Drake Stoops, he is a possession wide receiver. Nick Anderson, Jalil Farouk, and Jaden Gibson, the other 3 big wide receivers, those guys are playmaking wide receivers. So having Austin Stogner be a possession kind of guy to get you those 8-yard, catches on 3rd down is something we really need in this offense, really, really bad. And, next year, you need a guy like that in this offense because whenever Austin Stogner played like the way he did, you can see it does unlatch another part of this offense that we haven't had this season. So maybe, just maybe, we can see this for the rest of the season. I'm hoping that I can, every single time I see Austin Stogner catch the ball, I think of Ty thinking like, oh, Jameson, you counted him out. You counted him out.
Game. I thought he was going to get that one reception. I was already celebrating when he got that one, 22-yard reception.
Yeah, it was
and then he went on and scored and continued to just – I didn't feel the need to bring it up again after that. I knew he was watching. I
hate it because I sit there and I'm watching and I'm like internally like mad that we just got a touchdown because Austin Stogner got it because I have to eat my words. And I'm like, Jameson, Oklahoma just scored, like quit. And I'm like, but Ty's going to mention it on the podcast and I don't want to talk about it. But here we are.
I'm sure Ty feels the same way about big Dillon Gabriel games sometimes. But
no,
not as much
I'm
anymore.
100% on the Dillon Gabriel. I'm trying to think if I have any sort of takes that I'm tied to at this point. I mean, we were in rough waters with the Marcus Major take, but I flipped the script there. I mean, that was years.
We have been in rough waters as in the entirety of this podcast.
Yeah, but the entire existence of the Schooner Pod. So I'm kind of hoping I flipped the script on you guys earlier by digging you into a Gavin Freeman hole. And then just for years, y'all have to be like, no, he's going to take off next year. He's going to be in the slot next year. It's going to be 4 years down the road. He's going to have eligibility somehow. You guys are going to be talking about
I'm a little bit more excited about Jaquays Petaway next year. But I've mentioned next year 3 times in this podcast already. We need to start talking about this season more.
If we want to talk about takes, Jameson saying that we should bench Dillon Gabriel and put in Jackson Arnold.
I will stand on this because I think this is a big tape that a lot of people are going to talk about in the OU. There's going to be these like, oh, you disagree with that. And OU people that were saying that you should fire Levy and you should start Arnold. They're
You
completely
should.
wrong. Once again, I said that this was a home game and all things broke right for us. I want to see our problems. We're on the road in high pressure situations. We did not capitalize whenever we needed to, and our back was against the wall on the road. So whenever we're on the road in the coming future, I mean, BYU, that's different unless something bad happens. I don't want to say this is whenever we're playing a good opponent in a hostile environment, I want to see if we can go out and do the things that we did at home whenever we were comfy. It's as simple as that. And that was the big jabs at Jeff Lebby. Not every single game is going to be at home versus an opponent you're 13-point favorites against. It's as simple as that. So I'm not concerned about our offense playing a game like this. I know we can do this. We do this all the time. I want to see how our offense does whenever it's hard.
I think that's fair because it's one thing to call plays when you're just cruising and everything's working, but it's when whatever your game plan is doesn't work, can you pivot? And Jeff Lebby consistently cannot pivot.
And that's why people need to stay on the Jeff Lebby little criticism train. Let's not all get off and be like, oh, Jeff Lebby is the savior and we're still good now. We overreacted. I still think it's somewhere in the middle. Like we still have got a lot to see and a lot to learn. And I think that this game doesn't fix everything that we've seen thus far the past couple games.
I'm still in the camp that I hope he gets hired somewhere else for a head coaching job. That's where I'm at right now.
Ooh, head coaching. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Houston or someone garbage picking him up. That would be great. But we'll see how it goes. I would be okay with him leaving. I think morally I'm against him. As a play caller, I'm also against him too, because he just time and time again cannot, he is bad at play calling in tight moments. This was not it. We'll see how this goes as the season progresses with a couple big games down the line, potential Big 12 championship implications. We'll see how that goes. But, and the Arnold thing, I can't be too harsh on you too anyways, because that was a bit of a, out there take anyways, but that happens. It's a fair statement. I get where you're coming from.
It's part of the podcast game. I got to be a little out there, but at the same time, I actually kind of believe in it. The thing is, for the rest of the season, we are not going to be in a situation as a fan base, no matter what happens, in my opinion, where we're going to be outnumbered more than 60%. We should be close to 50% or the majority for the rest of the games this season. So, and also I'm excluding BYU. I'm talking about
like 2 games left.
I'm talking about like big time games where we don't have like another Oklahoma State or another Kansas type of team that we'll be playing on the road for the rest of the season is what I'm trying to get at.
We're playing it that was in the national championship last year.
Yeah,
at home.
Yeah, our only road game is BYU, where not exactly a hostile environment. They literally give out ice cream sandwiches to the visiting fans. It's
so nice.
It's very delightful. They give out I think it's brownies and ice cream, actually, not ice cream sandwiches.
Please,
did I was going to say it's going to be like 20 degrees.
And at 10 a.m. It's horrible. We'll get into BYU in a little bit more. But let's go through game balls just really, really quick. Gabriel, it's really kind of Gabriel or Stoops, I'm guessing, right? Jameson?
Yeah, it's Gabriel. He had 8 touchdowns. He set a record, and that so many Oklahoma quarterbacks could not even touch. But I know I feel like this has been a conversation. Obviously, I'm not trying to belittle the 8 touchdowns, but it really does help whenever you're getting the calls and the goal line package as a quarterback as well. So, does this make it better than Baker Mayfield's 7 touchdown performance? I still think that's more impressive, but still, this was a really, really damn game. And if I'm just even comparing that to begin with, that's a game ball. There's no question about it.
Ty?
Yeah, accounting for inflation, it's really like 5 compared to what Baker did prior to COVID with all the inflation and scores. I'm gonna have to go. Look, I've done it before. I'm gonna do it this time. I will do it again. My co-hosts hate when I do this. The offensive game ball for OU has got to go to West Virginia's defense. It's just literally everything we did. They were like, yeah, we'll allow this for 20 yards. Oh, yeah, we'll allow this for a touchdown. So shout out to them. But if I had to give it to someone on OU, I will – it's got to be Dillon Gabriel. I don't want to zag and say
Woo-wee.
Drake. Jameson was worried I was going to say Stogner. He was worried.
I was waiting for it.
Grading
The O-line, perhaps, who deserves an A this game. But no, I got to go Dillon Gabriel. He was the best quarterback in college football this weekend. Easy. He was more impressive than, Bo Nix, who played
Drake
a
May had
team
a big
that was as good. Yeah, Drake May played a basketball.
I'm kidding. I'm just trying
to think of who else is in college football that people think is good. I watched a lot of that Washington game. I'm not really that impressed by Penix, actually. They just go for touchdowns on every play, and they play in the Pac-12. So that kind of boosts his stats.
They should have won by 3 scores if it wasn't for big dum-dum. And then
that was a brutal
also second big dum-dum kicking.
Their defense is terrible. They're maybe the only undefeated team who would actually lose to Florida State.
Well, I think you might not be wrong there. That's funny. So y'all are all going Dillon Gabriel. I'm a zag. I'm going with McCade Mattower as my
I like
ball.
that. That's also acceptable.
Because his ejection, first of all, garbage, but sticking up for his guys. He had that dog in him. You need a guy to go up and just kind of don't take any shit, honestly. And I appreciated that out of Mattower. Even though he did get ejected, he did get a fist bump from Joe Harris, and I respect that.
They showed on the broadcast, which was amazing.
Which is great.
The president of the university, someone's being ejected from the game. Like, my man.
The real game ball would be DG, but got to spread the love there a little bit. Yeah, if there was, it's not a game ball. It's more like he got that dog in him player of the game or something. I don't know. Anyways, all right, let's shift to the defense. I thought this was a very impressive display from the defense again. The return of Danny Stutzman, massive. And, let's just get right into it, Jameson. We talked a little bit last week about, oh yeah, we need to see more Kip Lewis. They need to find a way to play him with Stutzman. It's kind of tough that they play the same position. It didn't matter. They put them both in, and they both looked excellent.
Yeah, and Stutzman looked like he could be even better. He did not look fully healthy, but it seems like we're right back to it with doing these short, stops on goal line stands and 3rd and 4th and shorts, and it just seems like that is the strength of our defense, and Danny Stutzman is just electric in those situations. It unlocks another part of this defense that we did not have without him. I understand you're a big Jaron Canick guy, Bobby, but Kip Lewis, he's that dude. There's not a lot of players in football where you just watch and you just go, wow. Like Kip Lewis is one of those guys for me. Like he makes plays and he moves he's quick and he's got the kind of, he's very squirmy. He's very squirmy. He can kind of get in little small areas and move quickly. And I'm not saying that's because of a size thing, but like he just gets to the spot and he like kind of contorts his body really well. He is a guy that we are going to love for a couple more years.
Yeah, I love the moving Kip Lewis up. And look, I'm still a big Canick guy. I like him a lot. I think benching him was honestly the right move because he even actually played pretty well. I think he responded to it pretty all right. And ultimately, when a guy doesn't perform, eventually you have to sit him down and be like, hey, we're benching you. Figure it out. Play the best guy every time. I don't care, what their relation is, what their tie is to their coach, the DC. If you're not performing, you get pulled. And the fact that we have the depth where we can pull a guy and improve that much is just truly great. Lewis he's a beast, man.
And Kobe McKenzie played well too. Like the linebacking crew had a really good game.
Yeah, I think, not to rehash old points, but I think the defense really, really thrived. I think the defense, maybe even more than the offense, really thrived on the home environment, the atmosphere that was there, at least from what I could glean from the broadcast. And then I think, we touched on, we're going to continue to touch on, but the vibe that Danny Stutzman brings to the defense, going out there as a leader and just other people get big plays without him being there, tackles for loss or whatever else. But it's just a different vibe when you're out there. You're really celebrating those. You're getting that little, that excitement, that high off of big plays versus like a tackle for loss or chug back to my spot, whatever. It just seemed like the entire game was less of a slog for this OU defense. And then another really overarching point that sort of is very much in line with what I was talking about on the offense. But if you listen to everyone's breakdown, not ours because we didn't really do much of one, but if you listen to a lot of the experts around college football, their breakdown of what West Virginia needed to do to really beat this OU team or threaten this OU team, they came out and did almost the exact opposite. So I don't know what their game plan was, but they sort of went away from a lot of the stuff that has made them successful in some other games. And then, we were, again, just there to capitalize on it, which is something that we haven't been doing the past couple of weeks. Obviously, winning the turnover margin is huge. And then just making sure that any mistake that they make, any poorly drawn play, any poorly executed play, we were there to take advantage of it. Kind of like Jameson said, a lot of stuff fell in our favor. A lot of stuff worked for us, but we created our own luck in that sense this week. And I think that's a factor that we didn't see the past couple of weeks, especially on the defense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Ty, that, going into this game, a lot of people thought West Virginia would be very ball control, slow things down. They didn't, it appears like they didn't really go on very many long drives at all. OU did a pretty good job of getting them off the field, which is great because last week they, against Oklahoma State, felt like the defense was on the field the whole game. OSU, really never gave Dillon Gabriel and that offense a chance to do anything. West Virginia, on the other hand, did not have the ball for as long as they needed to succeed and really grind down that defense. That just was not the case, it seems.
Yeah, it's getting off the field is such a big deal. 4 of 16 on third downs for West Virginia. And that just makes me want to go look something up real quick. Out of curiosity, y'all talk, because I'm going to look up what the third down numbers were the past 2 games from Kansas and Oklahoma State, because I guarantee you it's not anywhere close to 25%.
Yeah.
Well,
in addition to that, they also went 4 and out twice. So they were 2 of 4 on fourth down, West Virginia was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, while Jameson's pulling up some stats from the past couple of weeks, obviously a bit of bleed over into the weekend spread, but it is egregious malpractice that we have not yet mentioned. OU's turn of fortune was actually entirely due to Bobby finally eating a Fruity Pebble pickle, which almost instantaneously reversed OU's fortunes. We saw one of the best OU performances we've seen all year after seeing 3 of the worst that followed.
That is true.
Then the pickle was a generous. The pickle is a generous curse because it did give us a warning shot with UCF that was still ignored.
I know.
Unfortunately,
I fully believe in the pickle, man. I don't have any doubt, because also there's also the whole side effect where, even though my luck was bad throughout my entire life, it also benefited me with many weekend spread wins. And the second I ate the pickle, go straight to hell. It's awful. But not,
what about your life? Just like we were talking about, you had the Coyote business. So after Wednesday, did you have a good Thursday and Friday? Did things seem to go pretty well Thursday and Friday?
I would say there are positives. I don't think anything bad happened.
That's a positive.
It's more nothing bad has happened yet, which I definitely attribute to the pickle. That there has not been any massive stroke of bad luck that has befallen me yet. So I think overall,
if you're in a really bad point in your life and you're down on your luck, just go into a grocery store and get a big old pickle, fruit by the foot, some Fruity Pebbles, and some maple syrup, and let me tell you something, things will turn. This is proven data right here in front of you right now with Bobby.
You just need to threaten to eat a Fruity Pebble pickle, and if it works out, then you have to eat it. If you don't, it's going to go to hell. But you just have to always you have to declare it into the cosmos, and then hope it works out.
Yeah, and also my third down thing, it seems like there wasn't too much. It seems like we just did horrible on most downs. And third downs, we actually did kind of decent versus Kansas and Oklahoma State, which I guess I don't remember just because I guess it's just a kind of big old blur of blah from those games for me right now at this point. But moving forward, yes, we need to capitalize on this defensive momentum the way that we played in this game, because our identity before those 2 games, so I feel like we've forgotten about, and we were kind of like surprised in this game. We were such a good defensive stalwart of a team. And we went back to that same kind of play that we did in this game. Our secondary looked good. Our cornerbacks looked a lot better than they usually did. Woody Washington, I thought, had a good game, Ty. I thought Woody Washington went back to good old times. I understand he played bad in the past couple of games, but just by the eye test, Woody played well. Kendall Dolby's a guy that continues to really, really impress me throughout the season. Billy Bowman had a good game. Peyton Bowen's starting to get healthier, and he's still coming back from the injury. Things are coming back together to hopefully kind of round into form for these last 2 games of the season.
Bowen didn't see the field against OSU, did he? This is his first time back, right?
So we
didn't have him against the Pokes. I just checked.
And
he didn't report a stat.
Yeah, and he barely played versus Kansas as well either. So he's just slowly getting back.
Yeah, he actually did pretty solid from what I can tell from the box score. 4 tackles was pretty good. So having him back has been massive towards this defense. And I'm not the guy who blames everything on injuries. But it is definitely an impact having him and Stutzman back for sure. Just they look more like themselves.
Yeah, I mean the whole vibe of the defense. I know I touched on it, but just the vibe between our defense and West Virginia's offense as well was interesting, especially as things started to get chippy down the road between our offense and their defense. Things were definitely very chippy, but West Virginia's offense looked defeated. I mean, when things were getting chippy, when there was a bit of an end zone brawl and whatever else, you continue to pay attention to the game if you watched it in its entirety, especially on the broadcast, obviously even more so if you were there. But it continued to be chippy between our offense and their defense. And there was some level of chippiness beyond normal between our defense and their offense, but their offense just didn't have the fight in them. By the time that things got like that, you could tell that West Virginia offense was defeated. And that's just not something that we saw really in a long time. I mean, prior to Texas, because in that Texas game, obviously Texas was fighting to the end, but at no point in any of the past, really, I guess 4 games now, did we see this defense really reduce someone's will to play the game to a point where they just kind of wanted it to be over. And we saw that return again in this one. I think that was a really big key.
Absolutely. West Virginia, and Ty, you and I over the years have talked about West Virginia, how this game always feels a little bit chippy. This was no exception from what I understand. West Virginia went out the way they lived in the Big 12. Chippy and talking shit for no reason in a
while losing.
While losing,
getting blown out.
This standing over a dead man's body who just caught a touchdown. Like, it's just next level stupidity.
While you're down 25 at that point, I think.
Stoops not even moving the light. The lights go out. Legitimately, this is the Among Us, and they're about to go try to murder
touchdown too.
Let's go jump this 5'7" dude who's
who
laying
just put up a hat trick on us.
Yeah, no, like West Virginia just going out like absolute punks, man. I know we have our guy Timothy who listens to these. I apologize for stepping on your Mountaineers, but also this
step on them.
I don't think there will not be a weirder team that OU has faced overall in its conference history than West Virginia. These 12 years made no sense.
I gotta tell you, I think this might be an extremely cold take, right? I think any West Virginia fan that hears this is probably going to be, jumping with joy when they hear me say this. I think West Virginia is a very good. They never really have like big up years, or at least they haven't since they've been in the Big 12. Obviously, they beat us in that bowl game going in as my light goes out. But I think West Virginia, at least in terms of the fan base at West Virginia games, and then the way that the team always seems to be chippy, I think they are a pretty good comparison to a lot of the bottom tier SEC teams that we're going to see in the future, much more so than a lot of the Big 12 teams that we face.
Like which ones? Like Mississippi
Just
State?
in terms of vibe. Yeah, so Mississippi State definitely comes to mind, although Mississippi State, will randomly have an up year here and there, whether that's SEC bias or not. I don't know. I mean, they were pretty threatening back in the Dak year, when he was super, super good in college. But yeah, I think Mississippi State definitely comes to mind. Tennessee, Missouri, bottom
Oh,
tier
I
SEC
don't know.
teams
I
like
don't
that.
know. I think that's a little bit of a stretch for Tennessee and Missouri. I mean, Missouri obviously might be recent.
Missouri, obviously, we have a lot of
Definitely,
history. Arkansas,
definitely not
Arkansas is
Tennessee.
what I meant to say. I meant to say Arkansas.
Yeah. I can see
the same
Arkansas.
state.
I can see Mississippi State. I can see those.
Yeah,
Tennessee.
maybe a little Ole Miss, but I don't know.
No.
They tend to be a little bit better, though.
Ole Miss-
I mean,
Ole
we
Miss
don't
baseball.
need to
Ole Miss
dive into
baseball, like
we don't need to
that
dive into
atmosphere.
who is the
Yeah,
SEC
talking about
equivalent.
baseball.
I don't know if that makes sense. Just in terms of the rowdiness, I mean, people throwing beers all over the place at stadiums, that sort of
I
deal.
don't know that.
I
I don't know that there is.
I don't know. I don't know if that's it's not a 1-to-1 comp, but any fan base that burns couches for victory celebrations, that's pretty cool, if you ask me. I don't know. So yeah, game ball for defense, guys. Let's unless we had anything else to say. Sometimes good performances are the hardest to talk about because what's good is good. So I'll just kick us off. I'm gonna go Danny Stutzman. He's just a solid piece, and having him back really just seemed to anchor everything. Uninspiring, but
Yeah.
I also
No.
didn't watch the game in full or like in person. So
Unfortunately, they won't let me give it to DTY in remembrance. Not passed away, just not playing for us anymore. So I will have to go with Danny Stutzman.
Yeah, I don't know really who else to give it to. There's really not a standout. You give it to Danny just because it's like, congratulations, you're back. But it's not like, was Danny truly our best player on our defense? He is up there, but there's a lot of good players. It's hard to give one. Billy Bowman, maybe. I don't know. Sure, let's just sweep it for Danny.
there you go.
If you give it to Woody, I will. Yeah, give it to Woody so I can mulligan and give my offensive one to Stogner.
I will give it to Woody.
For the record, I'm not anti-Woody Washington. I just like.
Yes, you are.
Oh no,
God!
When he played poorly
in our group text,
I called him out. Yeah, okay, and match those to the play that occurred right before I sent the text. I'm not out here just hating him. Like, you just hate on Stogner. Stogner will be minding his own business, going to class, and you'll be hating on him, right? I don't hate on Woody Washington unless he does something hate-worthy. This is not like me and Dillon Gabriel last year.
Yeah, it's not a bit. You react to poor performances. That's fine. That's fair. Yeah, so Danny Stutzman wins the DTY Memorial Game Ball for defensive game ball. So, all right, let's move on to, I guess, look, I'm going to be honest. We're not going to talk about this BYU game much because there's not a lot to talk about. They are not very good. Mormons, go ahead, clip this all you want. Whatever. They have been just flat out bad. They're not even good at home anymore. It's OU 8-2, 5-2 into the conference, headed into Provo. Take on the 5-5 Cougars, who are 2-5 in conference play. It's a massive one, senior night morning, I guess, because this one kicks off at 10 a.m. Mountain time. Awful. The Big 12 can go to hell with that. That is atrocious. So instead of breaking down the keys of how we need to beat Keaton Slovis and
Keaton Slovis ain't even
Cougars,
playing. He got benched.
Exactly. Exactly. So
expert analysis.
Keaton Slovis is hurt, but
well, he's still there.
How much of it was actually him being benched? Yeah, it's Jake Retzlaff that played versus Iowa State, and Iowa State looked like the third best team in the Big 12. Let me tell you something, because they just killed the world beaters in Provo, right?
They did. They beat them down. And
this is a bit for anyone who's just now hearing this for the first time. Please do not clip that and make that actually my thoughts.
Hey, there's a chance that could be the third best team in the Big 12. They're still in the running, man. Let's not send them off yet. Every time you think the Cyclones are dead, they've just bounced back with a good performance. But
they just regress to the mean. That's all they do.
I mean,
they're an NPC.
They're sitting at fourth.
they are programmed to just be And if they do really well, then they'll stank. But if they start out really stank, they will regress to the mean.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Yeah, like looking at this BYU team in terms of like what their strengths are on the offensive side of things, they don't have like just watching their games this year, a definitive strength. Like they're a pretty well-rounded team, but the thing is they aren't great at anything. So in terms of like things to look out for, really, and I hate being this because it sounds arrogant, but it's true that OU needs to go out and handle their business and things should be okay. There isn't a big thing that BYU does that would like go at one of Oklahoma's weaknesses.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And, as we talked about poise and composure, especially on the offense, that needs to continue to be the same thing. Provo can be a pretty crazy environment here and there. It's not like they need all day to get liquored up because they don't get liquored up.
High on life, baby.
Yeah, they're high on life. They'll be fired up at 10 a.m. just like they'll be fired up at any time. And look, just being frank, this is like one of the biggest games in BYU history, having OU in town. Like when this was announced on their schedule, they were grown men like within tears because they had the Sooners coming to town to Provo on senior day. So you always are going to get everyone's best shot when you're Oklahoma. You can expect BYU to come out like firing for some reason because they always do. And you just have to be prepared for that. And that's fine. That's the reality of when you have the interlocking OU on your chest. That's what happens. You just have to live with it and move on. So I don't know. We've seen them have moments that look a lot less good now. That Arkansas win I think was surprising early, but they are absolute ass.
Texas Tech.
Cincinnati, I mean, Tech without, they've had moments, but this is just not a very good football team at all, really.
Their momentum right now, they scored 13 at home versus Iowa State. The game before that, they scored 7 versus West Virginia. The game before that, they scored 6 to Texas. Like, their offense is something that we should exploit. And you know what I want to see, which I haven't really even seen as of recently at all, and even in the last game, can we get a sack on the freaking quarterback? Last game, we didn't. And that is a huge weakness that we haven't really conquered too much this season, except for, like, I guess Red River, where Ethan Downs had his time in the sun. This was a weakness that we identified in the preseason. And this is a team that's set up to where I think we can get to the quarterback. I want to see it. Because 0 sacks in a game that you were dominant on defense versus West Virginia is not acceptable in college football. Especially, you want these kind of momentum plays. A lot of times the other half, it's going to be, whenever there's a holding called against you. We aren't getting those this season. Check the numbers last season and this season. We aren't getting holding calls against us. So we need to get to the quarterback and sack to get teams behind on 2nd down and 3rd down.
Absolutely. I mean, our rush has been not good. I don't know if it's other teams putting up, extreme pass pro or what.
No.
Probably not. We just have not had the ability to get to the quarterback. And, that will change as we get, some big time guys, coming in. I almost said David Hicks.
Maybe
Hicks.
Thank you, Jimbo.
Hashtag Hicks to Norman. Let's start it back up again, everyone. But shoring up that D line is going to be very, very crucial. And frankly, you don't need 5 stars to beat down Big 12 big line or O lines. It's silly, but I don't know. I think that is a key factor, especially, in an environment, a heavy environment situation where, big plays could really just suck all of the, excitement out of the building. So, okay.
Let's do a big picture thing here. Cause
yes.
I know everyone wants to hear this. You got anything, Ty?
We cannot talk about BYU. Of course, a lot of people know the Cougar tail. I think maybe the greatest unique concession in college sports, right? I can't think of what other school can you think of where they have like a concession that's like, there's the corn dog thing between Ole Miss and LSU, but that's not really like a unique concession. They don't even have the
Like a
most
meme.
important corn dogs in. Yeah, it's a meme. It's more of like an insult. BYU Cougar Tail, 16 inches of linear non-hold donut that they will just pass around because they don't drink or anything in the stadium. They will just pass it around. Like you take a bite, you pass it to the person next to you. Yeah. Communal donuts. They just get, like it literally pass around. The Cougar Tail turning 20 this season. I don't think it's this. I think it debuted at the beginning of the season, but turning 20 this season, something that just has to be. I think it's amazing. Personally, I would not partake in a Cougar Tail now, but I definitely would have as a student. I'm certain, because I've seen clips of the BYU student section, and they just get like 40, 50 of these bad boys rolling around, just going up and down the rows and diagonally, and it's amazing. I'm telling you, you get a Cougar Tail going on a good sort of oak-like path.
Jameson, as a healthcare professional, what are your thoughts on the communal donut?
Eat it. Good for you.
Eat it?
Yes. Eat it.
It'll make your system strong.
That's exactly right.
So I've been thinking, you mentioned what other places have like a food item that's only there, and the only one I can think of is Nebraska and the Runza. And then we started talking about the communal aspect, and it gave me the worst idea ever, which is the communal Runza, which this
things will get sloppy.
Sounds awful. just this giant meat pocket getting passed around, just cabbage and beef so much falling out,
all on the ground. The poor kids have to go clean up. They're like, oh no, it's
clean up stewed cabbage from the floor. Ugh.
That does sound amazing. But yeah, I was going to say, it is kind of a crime that BYU does not give visiting teams, whatever the calculated amount of Cougar Tails that are required to feed, one bite per person on a visiting team. That's way better than ice cream and whatever else.
Yeah. Well, my brother-in-law will be at this one, so I'll have to ask him to give us a Cougar Tail review. Not like the
Cougar Tail
one.
To the dome.
He needs
just one Cougar Tail to the
dome. Hey, that's enough sugar to have you wired all day long.
See,
you take a full Cougar Tail to the dome.
Yeah, you in fact cannot make one at home, so please do not make a Cougar Tail sort of bet, because then we'll be cursed for permanent damage until you can travel out to BYU. It actually says in their official history that they took a big gamble on this Cougar Tail, and before they even introduced it, they had to go like special order fryers or something like that, large enough to even make these things, because apparently people don't have the capacity to make a 16-inch non-hold linear donut.
Keep bringing up the
off
holes.
The shelf.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's an important. This is a podcast, right? So if I said a 16-inch linear donut, you've got some sort of elongated O in your mind. But then I have to mention, because there's
a long
donut hole. It's not a 16-inch donut hole, and it's also not a 16-inch hold donut. It's a 16-inch linear non-hold donut.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive donut. And I hate to be the guy to look ahead. Go ahead, James.
I don't have a transition statement for it either, Bobby. We just gotta hop into it.
I get
Hard
it.
Transition.
Look, a week ago we had to. I think I brought up the Big 12 title race, and Jameson looked visibly disgusted thinking about it.
Mad.
Which is fair. After how we played, I wouldn't want to talk about it either. But let's be frank, it's absolutely in the cards for OU to make a run to Arlington if they take care of business. They're better than BYU. They're better than TCU. They should win both of these games. And look, that is great. Hopefully they take care of business and get it. But they need help, obviously. And it brings up an interesting scenario that a lot of people are wondering, what the hell's going on? How can OU get there? So right now, OU obviously behind the Texas Longhorns and conference wins at 5-2, but they are currently tied with Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Kansas State at 5-2. Kansas did themselves a favor and yeeted themselves out of the race entirely. Good for them. And then obviously beating West Virginia did that for us. Oklahoma State losing to UCF has opened up that avenue as well for them to lose twice and us leapfrog them there. So guys, essentially, what is, I'll just ask this question. What is more likely, Oklahoma State taking another loss or Texas taking another loss?
Texas, which is weird.
It's got to be Texas at Ames, right?
Oklahoma State's schedule is just booty. They play Houston and BYU. I mean, I don't care if Oklahoma State looked that bad. I just can't get behind Houston or BYU winning. And, Iowa State looking like the third best team in the Big 12 is our only hope here, Bobby.
What if I'm telling you, there's a chance that Iowa State gets in the mix and we win a tiebreaker over them by virtue of, head-to-head.
Well, the whole head-to-head thing with three-way ties, it makes things really odd with the whole, since we haven't played Kansas State, you really can't do a three-way tie, even though, if it was tied between us, Oklahoma State, and K-State, the tie would not go down to head-to-head, even though Oklahoma State beat both of us. It would come down to, since we haven't played Kansas State, you can't take out into account head-to-head at all.
Right.
So it really screws Oklahoma State there, and it gets really sloppy where it would be the best win versus the best common opponent. So whoever won the most versus the highest rated common opponent, which would be Iowa State most likely. And we won by 30, right?
Yeah, we won by 30.
Or would it be Kansas?
Well, Kansas would be a lower ranked opponent probably if it depends on what the Jayhawks do the rest of the way. They still have to play Kansas State again. So in this scenario, we're assuming the Jayhawks lose to K-State, which drops them down. K-State also has to play Iowa State, though. So that would drop them down as well. But Iowa State has one less because Iowa State only has 2 conference losses. I don't know. Yeah,
but it's going to be in that scenario, they would have 4.
No, Iowa State would have 3. K-State, so that's going to figure itself on its own.
Yeah, Farmageddon will solve it, and then the Sunflower Showdown will help solve it as well. But the easiest way for that to be resolved is OSU losing again, which they probably won't. But given what we saw on Saturday, I'm not counting anything out on OSU. That was a absolute laugher, a total joke of a performance on their end. Didn't even show up after Bedlam. And I didn't get a lot right on the weekend spread last week. That one I was all over. They did not even make the trip to Orlando. Pretty much, it was awful.
Do you think they have it? Do you think they can do it versus Houston though? Like what Houston just did with Cincinnati? Is there a chance?
That's the thing with the Cougars though. I don't trust them. I don't know if I trust them. They're not good.
I think I know my opinion at this point.
But Donovan Smith, we've seen him do some weird stuff. We've seen him do weird stuff. I think most likely you got to pray for spooky things to happen in Ames. Texas once again didn't look very good against TCU. So that seems like a pretty prime place for them to slip up. I don't think the Frogs are all that great at all. So I think Iowa State, obviously third best team in the Big 12, much better in my opinion than TCU. And I think that'll be a pretty tough game at night. I don't know. Seems like a time for spooky shenanigans. So hopefully that happens because look, I'm not in the business of wanting one team over the other. But if we can get another Bedlam, if we can run that back, I will take that 100 times over any opponent. Texas, regardless. I want to watch. We gotta wash that out of our mouth because as somebody who sees every single comment on every single platform from Sellout Crowd, I'm tired of the Oklahoma State banter. I cannot take it anymore. Y'all have the ongoing joke about how I'm a sleeper agent for OSU, whatever. It's not true. Clearly a joke because honestly, it drives me wild. I cannot stand that these people have eternal tiebreaker, and we have to get rid of this now. This is our only chance. I want it to happen. So, come on, Iowa State, get this done.
Please, Ty, say this. Say it.
I understand that the joke upsets you, right? But the crux of your argument is Oklahoma State should be in the Big 12 championship.
Okay, fair. Walked into that one. Walked right into that one.
No, I still think, I agree with you though, Bobby, right? It's like the more that I've thought about it, I wasn't too upset about Bedlam when it happened, but the more I think about it, we did get screwed over by the refs, and it would just be, again, I don't know how it would work out, but that would be the best. The best thing is, especially for the team going forward, is when you can avenge, at least one of the losses that you have before. That's better than beating, Texas again in a series. Ultimately, best case scenario is OU wins the Big 12. That would be the funniest thing. That would be the best case scenario. It would be funnier than Texas winning it, because at one point the Big 12 thought we were done, and started to celebrate a little bit there. So who we win it over, I still think it would be hilarious if it was OU and Texas in the championship game, especially with all this tiebreaker stuff. If they just clearly manipulated it to do whatever they could to not get us in there, and then we end up there anyways. But long term, we're going to continue to play Texas every year. That trash talk is not the same as it is between Oklahoma. I agree. Like, best case scenario for this OU team, if you could write a movie script, is that we get to avenge that Bedlam loss, and the team that just played West Virginia and the team that played Texas shows up, and we just run them off the field, and then can point to that.
Can you imagine how bad the refs would be if it was OU OSU in the Big 12 championship? You got to be careful what you wish for.
It'd be comically bad. That's a very valid point, Jameson. That's why you don't root for matchups. So I'm no longer gonna root for that.
I would like to see what the refs would do in OU Texas, though. Like, what would they?
They just
they're not even present.
They'd like short circuit. Yeah, the Big 12 would do everything they could to cancel the game somehow.
There is a plumbing issue at AT&T Stadium.
Yeah,
we're gonna give it to our third best team, Iowa State.
Yeah. There'd be some sort of sign steal. There'd be a mysterious camera that's attributed to both teams sign stealing, and then it goes to Iowa State.
They just play OSU K-State again because because they're both champions of life. Anyways, I think that's pretty much all we have. Unless Jameson, any Cruton Corner? Have we gotten any Aggies yet from Jim?
And we're gonna hear the thing, but like, in the reality of it, it's kind of similar. Are they really going to Texas A&M for Jimbo? No, probably not. So it's more so like, let's just see how the dust settles with Texas A&M. There's a chance that you might get some decommits from Texas A&M, but Boosie, Blake's favorite. We were third place, in his standings. So like that's and then McKinley as well, same thing. Like, we weren't on the edge there with them. The real big thing is you're talking about transfer portal in the off season, because we have guys that we've kind of developed relationships and been close with, that could come in and help us. But I strongly doubt that there's going to be too much of an exodus in terms of Texas A&M, to be honest with you. Because it's already happened. Like, he's lost the locker room way before this.
That's fair. I don't know if you actually did have any Cruton Corner stuff, but
no, that's really it, to be honest with you. We could talk about 2025, but to be honest with you, let's just focus on the season. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, you're right. We will continue to roll along, and honestly, probably just asking about Cruton Corner. It's like Woj once said, it's not a jukebox. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up, guys. I don't know. The last Big 12 road game for the Sooners here should be intriguing, exciting. I'm just ready to get this. I think I'm ready to be done with the Big 12 and just move on. I don't know.
No, you're gonna miss it whenever it comes. Little League World Series is the only thing on ESPN times. So be careful what you wish for.
Okay, valid point. I want to savor the football, but I'm ready for the Big 12 to be gone. So you're right. I will soak up. That was not supposed to be a BYU pun, but it was. Soak up the remainder of the games. So, anyways, that's our show, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like this video if you're watching live. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure to give us a 5-star review. And look, we'll see y'all on Wednesday for week 12 of the weekend spread, our penultimate run here. So lots of exciting stuff. Lots of stuff can happen in standings. And this is an interesting batch of picks here. It's not the best week, but I don't know. I feel like there's some spicy games. So I'm excited about it. But all right. For me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Schooner Pod. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. And Boomer Sooner, everybody.